High Councillor Vex Nail adjusted his ceremonial breathing apparatus for the third time in 2 minutes, which, in Zephyrian culture, was roughly equivalent to a human having a complete nervous breakdown. The massive holographic display in front of him showed what appeared to be an innocent blue marble floating in space, but the data scrolling beneath it made his 4 stomachs churn in perfect synchronization. So let me get this straight, he wheezed through his translator device, his voice carrying just enough sarcasm to make the junior researchers flinch. You're telling me that for the past 50 cycles, we've been calling them the Terrans because that's what they told us their planet was called? Junior analyst Kick 77 bobbed his gelatinous head nervously. Yes, High Councillor, they said their world was called Terra, so we catalogued them as Terrans from the planet Terra in our official records. And nobody, Vex Nail continued, his voice rising to a pitch that made several species in the chamber cover their auditory organs, nobody thought to do a basic linguistic analysis. The silence that followed was so profound that you could hear a pin drop. Assuming pins existed in a chamber full of beings who communicated through everything from subsonic vibrations to interpretive dance, cultural attaché Yil Wen cleared her throat, or at least made the sound her species used when they were about to deliver terrible news. Well, High Councillor, there might be a small problem with the linguistic analysis. Define small, Vex Nail said flatly. We ran the translation protocols through their actual language databases, the ones they didn't give us access to initially. Yil Wen's tentacles writhed in what could only be described as bureaucratic panic. Terra, it turns out, is just what they call their planet in one of their ancient languages. Their actual name for it, in their most common tongue, is... She paused dramatically, though probably not intentionally. Just say it, Vex Nail demanded. Earth. The word hit the chamber like a neutron bomb going off in a library. Several delegates immediately began hyperventilating, which was quite a feat considering 3 of them didn't technically breathe oxygen. Ambassador Quinn Tell, who had been quietly reviewing his notes on human trade negotiations, suddenly shot upright like he'd been electrocuted. Did you just say Earth? I'm afraid so, Yil Wen confirmed miserably. As in the Earth, the one from the prophecy of ultimate doom and moderately unpleasant consequences. The very same. Vex Nail felt his primary heart skip several beats while his backup heart tried to pick up the slack. The prophecy of ultimate doom and moderately unpleasant consequences wasn't exactly bedtime reading material. It was an ancient text, older than most civilizations, written by the mysterious precursors before they vanished in what historians politely termed an unfortunate series of events. Someone get me the prophecy, he ordered, his voice now carrying the kind of authority that made junior staff members scramble like their lives depended on it. Within minutes, the ancient text appeared on the main display, its warnings written in the flowing script of a civilization that had learned the hard way why certain planets should be left alone. From the 3rd spiral arm shall rise the children of Earth, Vex Nail read aloud, his voice growing more strained with each word. Born of violence and shaped by struggle, they shall walk among the stars as they walked their homeworld, with fire in their hearts and stubborn defiance in their souls. They shall be both the greatest allies and the most terrifying enemies the galaxy has ever known. He paused, looking around the chamber at faces that had gone various shades of whatever color indicated absolute terror in their respective species. They shall call their enemies friend and their friends family. They shall weep for their enemies and die for their friends. They shall pack bond with anything that moves and several things that don't. They shall make weapons of their tools and tools of their weapons. They shall find a way to weaponize their compassion and find compassion in their weapons. Defense Minister Hax Prime, whose species was known for their military prowess and complete inability to understand human behavior, raised a claw tentatively. High Councillor, what does pack bond with anything that moves and several things that don't actually mean? Yil Wen consulted her cultural database, her expression growing more horrified by the second. According to our observational data, humans have formed emotional attachments with predatory animals, cleaning devices, and at least 17 different types of what they call houseplants. They bond with their cleaning devices. Hax Prime asked incredulously. One human named Marcus reportedly threw a memorial service for his automated vacuum cleaner when it finally broke down after 12 years of service. The entire neighborhood attended. The chamber fell silent again. This was the kind of behavior that made even the most xenophilic species nervous. "Continue reading the prophecy," someone whispered from the back of the chamber. Vex Nael's voice had taken on the quality of someone reading their own death sentence. "They shall take the void between worlds and make it home. They shall look upon the infinite darkness and say, we can work with this. They shall find a way to make the impossible merely improbable and the improbable routine." Trade Representative Zulketh, who had been unusually quiet during this revelation, finally spoke up. "High Counselor, I feel I should mention that humans have been asking about purchasing asteroid mining rights in the Tau Ceti system. For mining purposes." Vex Nael asked hopefully. "They want to build what they call vacation homes." The sound of several species simultaneously attempting to process this information was not unlike the noise a malfunctioning hyperdrive makes right before it explodes. "They want to build vacation homes on asteroids," Vex Nael repeated slowly, as if saying it more carefully might somehow make it make sense. With gardens, apparently. They're very excited about zero-gravity hydroponics. Junior analyst Kick77 raised his hand nervously. "Should I mention that they've also been asking about the legal requirements for keeping what they call emotional support animals on space stations?" "What kind of animals?" "Well, there was an inquiry about a creature called a ferret, another about something called a capybara, and one particularly concerning request involving what they described as a therapy alligator. The mental image of a human bonding with a presumably carnivorous reptile for therapeutic purposes was too much for several council members, who began making the rapid gestures their species used to ward off evil spirits and bad investment opportunities. Vex Nael continued reading, his voice now carrying the hollow tone of someone who had given up on the universe making sense. "They shall be the species that names their warships things like Fluffy and the Snuggle Bear, then uses them to defend planets they have never seen for people they have never met, simply because it is the right thing to do." Security Chief Voknar perked up at this. "Actually, High Counselor, we do have reports of human vessels with unconventional names entering our space, such as the battlecruiser Cuddles just docked at Station Gamma 7. Its captain wants to discuss humanitarian aid for the refugee crisis in the Outer Rim." The irony was not lost on anyone present. A ship named Cuddles offering to help with a humanitarian crisis was exactly the kind of thing that made humans simultaneously endearing and absolutely terrifying to deal with. "There's more," Voknar continued, consulting his security briefings. "The destroyer Mr. Wiggles has been patrolling the trade routes and has successfully deterred 17 separate pirate attacks in the last month. Apparently, the pirates keep surrendering because they're too confused by the name to mount an effective resistance." "Of course they are," Vex Nael muttered. "Let's continue with the prophecy. They shall be the species that develops faster than light travel and uses it primarily to deliver what they call care packages to colonies that have nothing to trade in return. They shall weaponize friendship and militarize kindness. They shall respond to impossible odds with hold my leverage and somehow make it work." Cultural attaché Yil Wen looked up from her database with an expression of someone who had just discovered that reality was far stranger than fiction. "High Counselor, I'm reading reports from our embassy staff about human cultural practices, and I think we might have a problem. A bigger problem than accidentally cataloguing the prophesied species of ultimate cosmic significance as just another developing world. They've started inviting embassy staff to something called game night." The chamber waited in hushed anticipation. 3 of our ambassadors have become emotionally invested in what humans call Dungeons and Dragons. Ambassador Fel 9 from the Regal Collective has created what she describes as a half-orc barbarian with abandonment issues. She's been attending therapy sessions in character. Vex Nael felt his consciousness briefly disconnect from reality which his species experienced as a sort of mental static that usually preceded either enlightenment or a complete psychotic break. She's attending therapy as her fictional character, twice a week. The human running the game apparently has a degree in psychology and has been helping her work through her fear of emotional intimacy through collaborative storytelling. Defense Minister Hax Prime looked up from his military assessments. Are we sure these are the beings of prophecy? They sound more like extremely dangerous but well-meaning pets. That's exactly why they're dangerous, Vexnail said, the pieces finally falling into place in his mind. Read the final passage. He scrolled to the end of the prophecy, where the precursors had left their most dire warning. Beware the species that treats the universe as their backyard and every sentient being as a potential friend. Beware those who will adopt your wounded, feed your hungry, and defend your borders not for glory or profit, but simply because they were in the neighborhood and figured they might as well help out. For they shall inherit not through conquest, but through the simple act of making everyone around them want to be better than they were. The chamber was now so quiet that the background hum of the life support systems sounded like a thunderstorm. They're not here to conquer us, Vexnail realized aloud. They're here to accidentally make us want to conquer ourselves. For them. Ambassador Quintel nodded slowly. The trade negotiations make so much more sense now. They keep asking if we need anything rather than what we have to offer. Captain Sarah Martinez spent 40 minutes yesterday asking about our agricultural situation and whether our farmers had adequate access to soil nutrients. Soil nutrients? She offered to put us in touch with some brilliant people who've developed sustainable farming techniques for low-atmosphere worlds. No charge, apparently, just because she thought it might help. The implications were staggering. A species that offered technological advancement not as a bargaining chip, but as a casual gesture of goodwill, was either the most naive civilization in the galaxy or the most terrifyingly advanced. Given that they'd managed to develop interstellar travel while simultaneously maintaining what appeared to be a functioning system of ethics, Vexnail was beginning to suspect it was the latter. High Counselor, Junior Analyst Kick 77 interrupted timidly. There's something else you should know about the humans. Vexnail braced himself. What now? They've been sending us memes. They've been sending us what? Memes. Cultural artifacts designed to convey humor and shared understanding. Our xenocultural department has been analyzing them, and they appear to be an attempt at interspecies comedy. Vexnail stared at the junior analyst as if he had just announced that the humans had figured out how to weaponize mathematics. Show me. The main display shifted to show a series of images that had apparently been transmitted from the human embassy. The first was a picture of what appeared to be a small Earth creature with large eyes, accompanied by text that read, "When you realize the humans named their planet dirt in their own language, but it's still the most beautiful world you've ever seen." The second image showed a human in what appeared to be a spacesuit, giving a thumbs-up gesture while floating in the void, with the caption, "Meanwhile, humans, space is just sky without the blue part." Several council members began making what could only be described as laughing sounds, despite the fact that none of them were entirely sure why. "They're trying to make us laugh," Vexnail said wonderingly. In the middle of first contact protocols, with the future of interstellar relations hanging in the balance, they're sending us jokes. "It gets worse," High Counselor Yilwen added. "Some of our staff have started sending memes back. The humans appear to find our attempts at humor adorable and have begun teaching us about something called meme culture. We're being culturally assimilated through humor," Vexnail realized. "It's remarkably effective," admitted Ambassador Quintel. "I may have bookmarked several human comedy videos for later viewing." The High Counselor looked around the chamber at his fellow representatives of galactic civilization and saw the truth written on their faces. They were all doomed not through conquest or destruction, but through the simple, inexorable process of becoming fond of the humans. Which, according to the prophecy, was exactly how this was supposed to go. "Emergency session adjourned," Vexnail announced wearily. I need to contact the Galactic Archives and inform them that we may have accidentally befriended the most prophetically significant species in known history. As the council members filed out, each lost in their own thoughts about the implications of this discovery, Vex Nail couldn't help but wonder if the precursors had known exactly what they were doing when they wrote that prophecy. After all, if you were going to leave a warning about a species that would fundamentally change the galaxy through the simple act of being themselves, you'd probably want to make sure that by the time anyone figured out what was happening, it would already be too late to do anything about it. The humans were coming, armed with friendship, terrible jokes, and an apparently genuine desire to help everyone they met become the best version of themselves. Galaxy helped them all. 3 standard galactic hours later, Vex Nail found himself in the unprecedented position of hosting an emergency session while simultaneously trying to prevent a galaxy-wide panic. The holographic displays now showed incoming communications from 17 different star systems, all asking the same basic question: what do you mean the humans are the prophecy species? Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted non-binary entities, Vex Nail began, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had given up trying to make sense of the universe. We appear to have a situation. Fleet Admiral Zorketh, whose species was known for their tactical brilliance and complete inability to understand why anyone would name a warship Fluffy, that materialized via hologram from the outer defense perimeter. High Counselor, we have 47 human vessels requesting permission to enter our space. They say they're bringing something called welcome gifts. What kind of gifts? Vex Nail asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer would somehow make everything more complicated. Coffee, apparently, and something called pizza. They also mentioned they brought the good chocolate because they heard we were having a stressful day. The silence that followed was the kind of silence that occurs when an entire council chamber simultaneously realizes that the most prophetically dangerous species in the galaxy has just offered to bring them comfort food. Trade Representative Zulketh raised a tentacle hesitantly. How exactly did they know we were having a stressful day? They said, and I quote, "You guys have been sending very frantic-sounding diplomatic messages all morning, so we figured you might need snacks." Cultural attaché Il Wen looked up from her constantly updating database of human behavior. "High Counselor, I'm reading reports from stations across the sector. Humans have been showing up at diplomatic outposts with what they call care packages for the past 6 hours. Define care packages. Baked goods, entertainment media, small potted plants, and instruction manuals for something called stress management techniques. Station Commander Velos reports that a human named Janet Peterson taught his entire security staff how to meditate. She taught Coraxian warriors to meditate. Apparently, she also brought them herbal tea and cookies, shaped like their traditional war symbols. Commander Velos says his stress levels have decreased by 60%, and his warriors are requesting permission to adopt Janet as an honorary pack member. Vex Nail felt his sanity slip another notch. The Coraxians were the most militaristic species in the known galaxy, and they wanted to adopt a human grandmother into their warrior culture because she brought them cookies and taught them breathing exercises. "This is happening everywhere, isn't it?" he asked wearily. "I'm afraid so," confirmed Ambassador Quintel. "The humans seem to have developed some kind of early warning system for civilizational stress. They're responding to our panic by bringing us comfort items and emotional support." Security Chief Voknar consulted his reports with the expression of someone whose job had just become infinitely more complicated. "High Counselor, we're also receiving requests from human civilians asking if they can volunteer for what they call cultural exchange programs." "What kind of programs?" "Teaching alien children human games, helping with infrastructure projects, sharing cooking techniques, and offering to pet sit for species that apparently have what humans consider adorable domestic animals. They want to pet sit our domesticated creatures. A human named Marcus Williams has specifically requested to care for a Zentorian acid slug while its owner is on vacation. He says he's always wanted to try exotic pet care and promises to give it all the love and attention it deserves." The mental image of a human lovingly tending to a creature that could dissolve through solid metal was somehow both terrifying and oddly heartwarming. Junior analyst Kick77 interrupted nervously. Counselor, there's been a development with the prophecy. A development? He found the rest of it. The section that was sealed until the prophecy species actually made contact. Vexnail felt his hearts collectively skip several beats. Show me. The ancient text materialized on the main display, revealing passages that had been hidden for millennia. When the children of Earth walk among the stars, they shall bring with them the gift of perspective. They shall look upon your greatest achievements and say, "Neat. Want to see what we built in our backyard?" They shall examine your most complex problems and respond with solutions so simple that you will feel embarrassed for not thinking of them first. Defense Minister Hax Prime leaned forward. High Counselor, what does that mean exactly? Before Vexnail could respond, Fleet Admiral Zorketh's voice crackled through the comm system. Actually, I might have an example. The human vessel Snuggle Bear just solved our 300-year-old waste disposal problem. How? Nye. They asked why we don't just recycle everything and use the organic waste for fertilizer. When we explained that our technology couldn't efficiently separate the different waste types, they offered to send us plans for something called automated sorting systems that they apparently use in their homes. Their homes have automated waste sorting? Captain Rebecca Santos says her 8-year-old daughter designed their family's system for a school science project. She's offered to have the child explain it to our engineering department. The council chamber fell into the kind of stunned silence that occurs when an entire civilization realizes that their most intractable problem has just been solved by a human child's homework assignment. Vexnail continued reading the newly revealed prophecy. They shall be the species that responds to your declaration of war with an invitation to dinner and somehow makes it work. They shall turn your ancient enemies into drinking buddies and your drinking buddies into family. High Counselor, interrupted Communications Director Tix Val, we're receiving a transmission from the hegemony of Drac. The chamber tensed. The Drac had been the Council's primary military rival for over 2 centuries, their aggressive expansion policies making them the closest thing to an actual threat that the galaxy currently faced. What do they want? Vexnail asked cautiously. They want to know if the humans have any more of those chocolate chip cookies and whether the recipe for friendship bread requires any special diplomatic clearances to share. The silence that followed was profound enough to achieve its own gravitational field. The Drac want cookie recipes, Vexnail asked slowly. Apparently, a human trade delegation got lost and ended up in Drac space 3 days ago. Instead of being captured or executed, they were invited to what the Drac are calling the most enlightening cultural exchange in their recorded history. What happened? The humans taught them card games, shared baking techniques, and introduced them to something called movie night. The Drac High Command is now requesting permission to establish formal diplomatic relations because, quote, these humans understand the true meaning of hospitality. Cultural attaché Il Wen looked up from her database with an expression of someone who had given up trying to categorize human behavior. The Drac have also submitted a request to join something called the Galactic Neighborhood Watch program that the humans apparently invented yesterday. They invented a neighborhood watch program for the galaxy? In response to learning about the piracy problem in the Outer Rim. They've organized volunteer patrols, community support networks, and what they describe as block parties for entire star systems. 17 different species have signed up in the last 4 hours. Vexnail felt reality continue its steady march away from anything resembling sense, but he'll continue with the prophecy. They shall be the species that looks at the vast, uncaring universe and decides to care anyway. They shall adopt your orphans, repair your broken things, and somehow make you believe that tomorrow can be better than today, simply because they showed up and decided to help. Ambassador Quintel cleared his throat. High Counselor, I should mention that the Human Embassy has submitted a formal proposal for something they call the Galactic Improvement Initiative. Do I want to know? They want to establish volunteer programs for infrastructure development, educational exchanges, cultural preservation projects, and what they describe as intergalactic community building activities, such as pen pal programs between different species, joint scientific research projects, cooking competitions, art exchanges, and something called the Great Galactic Bake-Off. The mental image of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations competing in a baking contest organized by humans was simultaneously absurd and strangely appealing. There's more, Quintel continued. They've also proposed establishing what they call crisis response teams for natural disasters, humanitarian emergencies, and what they describe as general helping out with stuff. Security Chief Voknar nodded grimly. The humans have already deployed emergency aid to the Tau Epsilon colony without waiting for official authorization. They said the volcanic eruption looked pretty serious and they figured they'd pitch in while the paperwork got sorted out. They deployed emergency aid without authorization. 3 medical ships, 2 engineering vessels, and something called a mobile kitchen unit. The colonists report that human volunteers are currently serving what they describe as the best soup they've ever had, while human engineers repair their damaged infrastructure. Vexnail realized with growing horror that the humans weren't just fulfilling the prophecy. They were exceeding it in ways that the ancient precursors could never have imagined. Final passage, he announced, his voice carrying the tone of someone reading their own epitaph. And when the children of earth have walked among you, when they have shared your burdens and brightened your days, when they have made you laugh at their terrible jokes and worry about their safety, when they take unnecessary risks to help strangers, you will realize the truth. You are no longer the same species you were before you met them. They will have made you better, not through conquest or coercion, but through the simple act of showing you what you could become. The chamber was now so quiet that individual heartbeats were audible across multiple species. The precursors knew, Vexnail said wonderingly. They knew exactly what would happen. High Counselor Junior Analyst Kick 77 said quietly, "There's a final line." It was encoded separately. "Show me." The text appeared, "Do not resist this change. Embrace it. The galaxy will be better for their presence, and you will be amazed by what you can accomplish when you remember how to hope." Fleet Admiral Zor Keth's voice came through the comm system again. "High Counselor, the human vessels are requesting permission to dock. They say they brought enough pizza for everyone, and they're excited to meet us properly." Vexnail looked around the chamber at the faces of beings who had spent their careers managing the complex politics of galactic civilization, only to discover that everything they thought they knew about diplomacy was about to be revolutionized by a species that considered friendship a strategic resource. "Grant them permission to dock," he said finally. "And someone find out what pizza is." "Already on it," Yilwen reported. According to the database, it's a circular bread covered with various toppings, traditionally shared among friends and family during social gatherings. They brought us friendship bread. Essentially, yes. Vexnail stood up slowly, his official robe settling around him like the weight of inevitability itself. "Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted entities, I believe we are about to experience what humans call a paradigm shift." "Should we be concerned?" asked Defense Minister Hax Prime. "Probably," Vexnail admitted. "But according to the prophecy, we're also about to become the best version of ourselves we've ever been." As if on cue, the main display lit up with an incoming transmission from the human fleet. A woman with kind eyes and a warm smile appeared on screen, wearing what appeared to be a casual uniform decorated with small, colorful patches. "Hello there," she said, her voice carrying the kind of genuine enthusiasm that made everyone in the chamber automatically sit up straighter. "I'm Captain Lisa Park from the UES Friendship Express. We heard you folks were having a tough day, so we thought we'd stop by and see if we could help. We brought pizza, coffee, some really good chocolate, and a few games we think you might enjoy. Also, my crew is absolutely dying to meet everyone and learn about your cultures. We promise to be good guests." Vexnail found himself smiling, which was anatomically challenging for his species, but somehow felt entirely appropriate. "Permission granted, Captain Park," he said. "Welcome to Council Space. We're looking forward to getting to know you too." As the transmission ended and the council members began preparing for what would undoubtedly be the most unusual diplomatic reception in galactic history, Vexnail couldn't help but think that the precursors had been right about one thing. The galaxy was definitely about to change. And despite everything his rational mind was telling him about the dangers of prophetic species and paradigm shifts, he found himself genuinely excited to see what would happen next. After all, how dangerous could a species be if their first act of interstellar diplomacy was to bring everyone pizza? Famous last words, he realized, but somehow he didn't mind.